Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtotter, the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtotter, the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So just to make sure I got the right verse. Is it 24?
28, I think.
28?
20. Yes.
Okay, yeah. This is I didn't have this book last night. Okay, 28. At the bottom of 164. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 20th day of April 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're in third chapter entitled Karma Yoga, text number 28 at the bottom of page 164. Tattvavit tu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Guna Guneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate Tattvavittu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Gunaguneshu 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 Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate Tattvavittu Mahabaho 164 Bhagayo Gunaguneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate. Ladies. Tattvavittu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Gunaguneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate. Pajamantal. Tattvavittu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Gunaguneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate Tattvavittu Mahabaho Gunakarma Vibhagayo Gunaguneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate. Zoomland.
Tattvavittu Mahabaho
Tattvavittu Mahabaho
Gunakarma Vibhagayoho
Gunakarma Vibhagayo
Gunaguneshu Vartanta
Gunaguneshu Vartanta
Itimatva Nasajjate
Itimatva Nasajjate. Tattvavit, the knower of the absolute truth. 2. But Mahabaho, O mighty armed one, Guna karma, of works under material influence. Vibhagayoho, differences. Gunaha, senses. Guneshu, in sense gratification. Vartante, are being engaged. Iti, thus. Matva, thinking. Na, never. Sajjate, becomes attached. Translation. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. Purport. The knower of the absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that his position should not be in the material creation. He knows his real identity as part and parcel of the Supreme, who is eternal bliss and knowledge. And he realizes that somehow or other he is entrapped in the material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He therefore engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and becomes naturally unattached to the activities of the material senses, which are all circumstantial and temporary. He knows that his material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by all kinds of material reactions, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one who knows the absolute truth in three different features, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Tattvavit, for he knows also his own factual position in relationship with the Supreme. Om Jnanatimrandrasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, as always, it's nice to and fruitful to see these verses in context. So the previous verse, which I said I think is probably the most quoted verse in this chapter. Prabhupada would always quote this verse, Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimunhatma kartahamati manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. And the present verse, if you look carefully, you'll see the second word in this verse is tu. You see that? Tu is used to mean on the other hand, or but, as Prabhupada says, but. So this is contrasting someone who is bewildered by false ego and thinks that he's doing everything. But someone who understands the truth, understands that material energy is actually doing everything. And so he or she doesn't do anything on the basis of false ego, understanding that the material energy is working and dovetailing one's activities with the service of the Lord. In this way, nasajjate, does not become entangled in the action and reactions of material activity. This whole chapter, remember, is about karma yoga. So if you're not doing karma yoga, you're doing karma. And karma means that you're trying to do some work that will benefit you materially and trying to avoid the entanglement of previous karmic reactions, and you're completely entangled. Your whole focus is on how can I do something to better my situation, and how can I... But you understand, well, material energy is doing everything under the guidance of Krishna, and so my karma is going to play out. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, not the exact beginning, but at the 5th chapter, the 1st canto, there are, Vyasadeva is unhappy because although he wrote the Mahabharata, he wrote all the other Puranas, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra and the 4 Vedas, he's still not completely satisfied. And he doesn't know exactly why. Those who read the 1st canto, you may know. So what happens is Narada Muni comes, and first he chastises the disciple. He says, you've written all this literature, but then he says, do you think that the mind and the body are the proper objects of self-realization? In other words, it's not that he hadn't written about Krishna or even about devotional service, but he had not written any Purana or anything exclusively dedicated to the absolute truth. Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna, the process of devotional service, and going back to Godhead. After all, this Bhagavad Gita is in the Mahabharata, which is one of the main books he wrote. But there's so many things in the Mahabharata that don't directly relate to the main subject line. You know, I remember I worked on this Mahabharata. At a certain point, the BBT was going to print a Mahabharata translation by Hridyananda Das Goswami, and he had translated the first part, the Adi Kanda, it's called. There's like 70, 80 chapters. It's a huge book, 100,000 verses. This Bhagavatam is 18,000, and that's pretty long. So this particular chapter, within the Adi Kanda, if I recall, was having to do, I don't know how it came about, with this planet of snakes. There's a planet of these snakes where Vasuki resides. He's a famous snake. And somehow he felt it was important to explore this planet in his writings. And at one point in that chapter, it was just a huge list of the most important snakes on that planet. And I was thinking, I'm proofreading this. Is this the right diacritic? I'm working on this. And I say, I can see why Prabhupada said we don't have to read the Mahabharata. It's not, although it's written for the people of this age who need stories and exciting lines, and within that, the Bhagavad Gita is there, so that we'll get it's like taking the medicine, by giving the sweet, in the form of the stories. But, so Narada Muni says, back to the main plot, Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, it says, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido, nalabhyate yad brahmatama prayata, tab labhyate dukkha vadanyata sukham, kalena sarvata gabhira rangnisa. He says that one should strive in one's human life for that which you cannot experience going up and down all the different planetary systems. In other words, that which is not available in the material world, which is Krishna Loka. He's not in the material world. But everyone is with ahankar, in illusion, and the previous verse, is striving to improve the situation here, the hard struggle for existence, good and bad karma, mostly bad karma in this age, no one knows the difference. And completely futile activity. At the end of it all, you die, you get a whole new body. In this age, it's probably going to be a subhuman body, because no one knows, committing all kinds of sins, even unknowingly. And so what did you really gain by all that struggle? You didn't move toward the goal of human life, which is to break free of the bonds of samsara, and karma, good and bad birth, and all these different things, and to go back home, back to Godhead, back where we should have stayed a long time ago. Isn't that the idea? So without knowing that, because Vyasadeva didn't write any books exactly about that, Narada Muni says, you need to write something just about the absolute truth. You sit in meditation, and because you're so advanced, you meditate on Krishna, and everything will be revealed to you. And he does that in chapter 7. Is a wonderful passage, which I won't go into detail. How he meditates, he sees Krishna, he sees Maya behind him, and then he describes how Maya is bewildering everyone in this material world, and causing so much abhadras or anarthas within the heart, in your struggle with Maya. And that all of this anarthas, the unwanted things, can be wiped away by the process of bhakti to Krishna. But people don't know that. And therefore Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one who hears the Srimad Bhagavatam will attentively, in the right mood, receptively, will become purified and attain bhakti, which will negate all your fear and all your anxiety due to being in the material world. So, back to our verse here. Those who are not ahankar vimudhatma, who are wise, tattvavit. He takes the definition of tattvavit from the Bhagavatam. Those who understand Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In other words, the absolute truth. Guna karma vibhagyo, the difference between activities, knowing well the difference between work and devotion and work for fruit of results. This is because we have to do something. Even in Bhakti Yoga, there's so many things to do. It's not that we go, say, okay, I'm going to stop doing anything. I'm going to go off to the Himalayas and just meditate. That's not our process for this age, and it's not going to work. Who can do it? But we can purify our consciousness by taking instructions for how to act and how not to act, what to do and what to refrain from doing, and in this way purify our consciousness. And none of it will be karma. We're not going to be we get disentangled from the karma. That's the first installment of bhakti. You're not incurring any new karma, and even just by chanting impurely but sincerely, you're getting rid of so much previous karma you don't even know. In the Brahma Samhita, there's a verse, Yastvindra gopa matavinda maho swakarma bandhana rupa palabhajana matanoti. That from Indra down to the little Indra gopa germ, there's a name for it, that all are bound up by their karmic reactions. But for one who is bhakti bhajam, who is worshipping Govinda, Krishna, nicely, then karmani nirdahati means that all of his karma, good and bad, is burned up. Nirdahati means totally burned up. It's like a seed. A karma is something you do, and then there's a reaction to you, but it doesn't happen right away. It's the seed of that reaction is coming, and gradually it fructifies, and then you experience it either good or bad. That's how karma works. And meanwhile, you're planting more seeds, and you can't totally enjoy it. So here it says all those seeds are burned. You know, if you burn a seed, or if you heat it too much, it will not fructify. So this is what we want to do. We want to mold our life in such a way that we're not incurring any new karma, and we're burning up the old karma, and we're developing the real fruit of activity, which is pure Krishna consciousness and love for Krishna. So this is he's making this statement here that someone who knows, is the tattva of it, doesn't act according to the modes of nature, understanding that the nature is going to go on its own, you see, and I'll act. And he understands. Prabhupada is hinting here that he knows he's part and parcel of the Supreme, and that his position should not be in the material creation. He knows his real identity with eternal bliss and knowledge, and he realizes somehow or other he's entrapped in material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities. What was I going to say? Yes, down near the end of the purport. He knows that his material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by all kinds of material reactions, which may be painful, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, there's a verse, very important verse, in the 14th chapter, 10th canto, which is, yes, this is one of Brahma's prayers. Tatte nukampam susamikshmano, bunjana evatnukatam vipakam, rid bhagvapurbi vidadan namaste jivetiyo muktipade sadaya bhak. This is a very important verse for us. Any bhakta. Tatte unukampam susamikshmano bunjana evatnukatam vipakam. That tatte unukampam means he sees as the Lord's mercy. Tatte unukampam susamikshmano means seeing. What does he see? The reactions, the things that happen to us, bad or good. Something may happen bad, and you say, the neophyte devotee, or someone who's practicing another religion, you know, why did this happen to me? I'm going to the temple, I'm going to the church every day, I'm worshiping. Why did my child come down with cancer? Why did I come down with cancer? So many bad things happen. Is there a God or not? You know, why do bad things happen to good people? This is the problem of evil. If God is kind, he's merciful, he knows everything, he's all powerful, why does he let the innocent suffer? I'm innocent. But the fact is, no one in this material world is innocent. Because we have a whole history of stuff that we did even in previous lives, which may be coming due now. So the devotee, he sees the bad and the good as Krishna's mercy. If something happens that's painful, he says, oh, Krishna's so kind, it could have been so much worse. You know? Like I hurt my ankle at the end of October. It was a bad sprain. I couldn't even come to the temple for days. I was laid up. Finally, it began to heal. It took several months, you know. And I didn't think, why me? I've been chanting Hare Krishna for so long. No, I think, thank you, Krishna. It could have easily broken where it was. I saw. If you would see the ditch that I inadvertently walked in, you could see it wasn't broken. And I had friends who would help me do my things and everything. So, you know, and also there's a benefit to these things. You know, things that happen that are not so pleasant. It helps us to really want to get out of this material world, you know, and it teaches us, in a general sense, that this is not our home. This is not a place of happiness. We're trying to enjoy some petty sense gratification, and we realize this is just prolonging our life in this material world when we should make every effort to go back to Krishna. So there's a teaching element there. On the other side, there are some good things that happen. You may, you may not get COVID. That's a good thing, you know. And so, so how do we understand that? Krishna is giving us more chance to serve him Thank you so much, Krishna. So whether it's something bad happens, something good happens, you see it as Krishna's mercy, and you go on with your service. And at the end of this famous verse, Daya Bhak, Prabhupada said, this word is used when someone is ready to inherit something. If you're due to inherit something from your parents or something, all you have to do is basically stay alive, you know. And that's the idea. Prabhupada mentions that in one place where he explains this verse. Just stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and you know, you'll be going back to God. Okay, you may not go back in this particular life, but you'll get a chance in your next life to be born and look at this wonderful baby here. He's probably learning the shlokas better than we can, just listening. You know, what a fortunate birth. You know? So the point is that someone who really understands what's going on, doesn't act according to the false ego, acts according to the injunctions of the Shastra, and whatever guna and whatever karma comes his or her due, he said, okay, this is some residue of the karma, because Krishna takes charge of the karma. It's not, devotees are not in an ordinary situation, and he's meting it out to teach us, good and bad. So we should see it all as his mercy, and in this way, nasajite, you don't get more entangled in this material energy, and you get disentangled, and that's one of the side benefits of Krishna consciousness. Any questions or comments on these important verses? Yes, we have a mic. Okay, just press it hard and hold it close.
So for those of us who don't live in the temple, you're talking about not creating trying to not create any karma, good or bad. Uh-huh. So I feel like it's very hard to do that when we are working, when we're, just being in the company of our other coworkers or whoever we work around, to not either get sucked, I don't know what the word to use is, but get sucked into all of that, So how do we find that balance? Is there a balance?
Well, I've been here a long time, and I've seen you guys maybe for the last year or so. So you're doing the right thing. In other words, it's difficult. And I mean, there's so much in the Shastra about the importance of association, and the value of living in the temple, living with devotees. This is one of the important things, because precisely for that reason, that especially, we're coming from a conditioned state, and the mind is prone to forget Krishna and to become absorbed in material things. So all you can do is try to increase at a reasonable rate your quality and quantity of your Krishna conscious bhajan. Whether chanting nicely and following all those things that you can reasonably follow when you're outside of that association, and maximize your good association at home and in the temple and things like that, so that when you are in that association, you can still maintain within yourselves a remembrance, and especially if it's possible to find someone in your association who's curious about what you're doing. Maybe you can tell them your real name. I don't know if you do that. Well, what does that mean? And then you're up and running. You can tell them all about Braj Leela, or at least about So it's a struggle, I know, and that's one of the reasons why I joined, because I was practicing, but there were so many distractions, so many pulls and pushes on my consciousness, and I needed the shelter of the temple. I was fortunate enough to stay. Many devotees, as you probably know, they join for a while, but then it becomes unfeasible, and they need to get entangled. And then there's prayer. You have to pray really hard. That the Hare Krishna mantra itself is a prayer that you can deepen your Krishna consciousness gradually. I've been asked this question a lot, especially when I go to Columbus, where it's practically all congregational members, Indians. How do I, what do I do? There's no easy answer, But there's so much you can do at home, what's vibrating, the vibrations that are going on, and the pictures on the wall. And of course, you can offer your food and so many different things. and build up your muscles, your spiritual muscles. All right, let's go on. No, okay. Text 29. Prakate guna sammudha sajjante guna karmasu Tana Krishna Bado Mandan Krishna bin Namachali. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Purport. Persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with gross material consciousness and are full of material designations. This body is a gift of the material nature, and one who is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called manda, or a lazy person, without understanding of spirit soul. Ignorant men think of the body as the self. They accept bodily connections with others as kinsmanship. The land in which the body is obtained is their object of worship, and they consider the formalities of religious rituals to be ends in themselves. Social work, nationalism, and altruism are some of the activities for such materially designated persons. Under the spell of such designations, they are always busy in the material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth, and so they are not interested. Those who are enlightened in spiritual life, however, should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. Better to prosecute one's own spiritual activities silently. Such bewildered persons may be engaged in such primary moral principles of life as nonviolence and similar materially benevolent work. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. So now Prabhupada switches gears a little bit. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So after the instruction of Krishna, do not unsettle them, although their duties are inferior. But that's what this movement is all about, unsettling them. What Hare Krishna, in the early days, you don't hear about it so much anymore, that devotees would do Harinam, and then they would be arrested in places like Australia was famous for that, and some other places, because they were causing a disturbance or this and that, And that was exactly what they were doing. They were causing a disturbance. People need an intervention. It's just like someone, one of your friends, or acquaintances, or somebody who's gotten himself entangled in alcohol or something, some drug, and they're not able to break free. So you care about them, so you take them. You're ruining your life. Marriage is going to break up, and you're going to waste all your money on this craziness, or addicted to gambling. That's another big thing. It's just as addictive as a drug, So they need an intervention from someone who cares, who will get in their space and maybe drag them to AA or whatever, and try to help them. This is what's needed, and that's exactly what Prabhupada did, and that's exactly what the preachers of Krishna consciousness do. The people are in a stupor. They're in Maya. They've got all kinds of misconceptions of what's important and what life is about and everything, and so they're helpless unless someone comes in and attracts their attention. And if there's some spark of interest, or they're able to turn their attention even a little bit, then give them Krishna, give them the holy name, or disturb them with a book. Who could be disturbed by Dimitri? This is But anyway, so the idea is people are out there who are innocent. There's this nice verse about the different levels of devotees, and the Uttama Adhikari, he sees Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. He sees Krishna in everyone, and he sees that everyone's a devotee but him or her. So what's the point of preaching? I'm just so low. These people, So that's a Uttama Adhikari. That's a vision. But the Madhyama Adhikari is what we're supposed to aspire for. So the verse goes like this: Ishvare tad adineshu badisheshu dvisatchucha Prema, Maitri, Kripopeksha, Yakaroti Samadhyama. So what this says is there's 4 different categories. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, Krishna, God. Adineshu, those in relation to him, the devotees. Balisheshu, the innocent people who are possible candidates for devotional service. And then the Dvishatsu, the envious, those who are inimical, the demons. So the devotee, the Madhyama Adhikari relates to each one of those in a different way. For the Lord, he tries to cultivate love, prema. For the devotees, friendship. You see? You know, didati, pradigunnati, giving gifts, accepting gifts, giving prasadam, like that. And hearing from and chanting. For the innocent, he tries to show mercy by giving Krishna consciousness or prasadam, somehow or other connecting them to Krishna, a book, a pamphlet, the holy name, you know, because this is what they need. And this is what we've been given. Pablo took the trouble to come all the way here, risked his life, so that we could hear the holy name and read his books and, you know, become saved. So we owe it to him and the whole Sampradaya to try to do that for others. And then the out-and-out inimical, demonic atheists, you know, you try to avoid them. You can neglect them. You know, those are hopeless. So that whole area of the innocent, the Balisheshu, yes, they're suffering, yes, they're sinful, but they're not beyond the pale. They're open to some, Krishna consciousness. So we intervene in their lives. You stop them on the street, or you call them from the table, or you go out and force them to hear the holy name, or you have a big Bhattiyatra festival in the middle of the park, you know. And then people, yeah, this is the Hare Krishnas. Look how happy they look. Maybe I'll check out those books, you know. So that's what this movement is all about. Is that diving in, experiencing ourselves, you know, not becoming pure right away, but experience, and trying to give it to others. And by doing that, you get the mercy of the Lord. As he says in the end of the book here, no one is more dear to him than those who are preaching his message. That's my secret here. That's why I've been giving this class for 30 years, because he says it. Anyway. No, I'm just kidding. That's why Prabhupada, after this verse, you know, this whole thing, that what does it say? Don't unsettle them. But Prabhupada says at the end, but the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. They undertake all kinds of risks to the point approaching the ignorant men to try to engage them. And it's an austerity. You know, Prabhupada even points out sometimes there's violence, you know, people go crazy, you know, and you know, Jesus Christ was the great devotees. They risk everything. Prabhupada, there's 4 or 5 times when he risked, directly risked his life, and when he knew there was a risk and he undertook it. There was this one I like to tell in Calcutta, the first Calcutta Pandal. You know, when Prabhupada went back to India, he went with his dancing white elephants. You know, all of the Americans and some Europeans who joined, and it was just like people were shocked in India. They'd never seen anything like it. So that was good, because they would come to the Pandal. He had speaking to thousands of people. So the first one in Calcutta, there was a group there that's still around called the Naxalites. You know what the Naxalites are. These are communist terrorists. And they weren't happy that Prabhupada they were communists, means they were atheists. And they weren't happy that Prabhupada was there and that the devotees were holding this Pandal. So they sent a note to Prabhupada, fly or die. In other words, get out of here, we're going to kill you. And they had assassinated people. They would hold people for ransom, and kidnapping. It was horrible. So Prabhupada didn't fly, you know, and so they came to the Pandal, you know, in force. So Prabhupada saw them and he said, "Oh, invite them in, give them some chairs," you know. So okay, so they sat down, and Prabhupada started chanting the beautiful Brahma Samhita. I don't know if someone was playing the tambura or whatever, you know, it was kind of... And these are all people who grew up in Bengal, so they knew some of this stuff, so they were a little bit disarmed by this, you know. There was no fear, you know, usually people were terrified, oh my God. And so then, of course, he gave them some prasadam, and then like genius, you know, he explained that Krishna consciousness is actually spiritual communism. Let me explain why. And they were fascinated. And I'll tell you an interesting story, because believe it or not, some of you have heard this before. I was raised as a communist, as an Orthodox communist. And when I was growing up in high school, my father, who was a labor organizer in the 30s in America, he he had a copy of the Das Kapital, which is, you don't know that book? That's Marx's main book that he wrote, all his philosophy. And he would pull it out of the closet, because and he wasn't just afraid, he was true, that the FBI was after him, because he was an organizer. So then he would take me to the kitchen table, and he would teach me the principles of Marxism, which I completely forgot except for one thing. I mean, at this point, we're 60 years down the road. And that is that there's a motto, just like we have a motto, go back home, back to Godhead, whatever, So one of the mottos that he had, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. This is the ideal of socialism, And that's for an ashram, That's the idea in Krishna consciousness, that you give whatever you can, you do and your needs are met, and you're living ideally in a rural community with cows and everything like that. So Prabhupada was explaining that to them, and they said, yeah. They figured, yeah, this sounds like from each according to his abilities, to each according to his... Yeah. So they were completely disarmed, and the whole danger was gone. And there's several other times which I won't get into, but the point is Prabhupada was willing to undergo these risks for us. And so if we make an effort, even a little effort, to reciprocate, both on a personal level and in giving it to others, then Krishna is so appreciative. Lord Chaitanya is so appreciative. And what's the result? Yeah, sit over here on one of the benches, Prabhu. Yeah, you can sit on that. You can put it on that bench, on top. Yeah, you'll be comfortable. I've tried it. There you go. Hare Krishna. And so, that's it. I lost my train of thought. So anyway, that's what devotees do. And of course we don't, cause disturbances among people, but we do try to approach them, and try to give them Krishna consciousness. That's what these temples are all about. So, but we don't unsettle them and make them so disturbed that they are not receptive. Okay, going on, text 30. Mai sarvani karmani sannisyādyatma cetasa nirashir nimmamo bhutva yujyasva vigatadvaraha. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Purport. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties, as if in military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord, he had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul, without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas. Nirashi means that one has to act on the order of the master, but should not expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mayi, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one becomes vigata dvara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. So, this is quite a formula Krishna has given us here. Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa. Nirashir means you have no aspiration. What does it say here? Without desire for profit. What we aspire for is key. And I always like to refer to the Tulsi song, where this word asha comes in several times. My aspiration is to become a servant of Radha and Krishna. One who surrenders unto you, prays unto you, has his wishes fulfilled. Please make me a resident of Vrindavan so I can always see right. So even though we may not wholly and solely aspire for these things, it's important to vocalize them and to try to get into the mood of them so that becomes more dominant within our heart. And not because it's so easy to simply turn our attention to all of the struggle for material existence. But our real aspiration, because we know, this is the thing, if you know it by reading the books, you understand that the real goal of life is to change our consciousness so that it's full of Krishna, we're attracted to Krishna, we understand what his prescriptions are, and that the goal of life is to develop attraction for Krishna and to break the attraction to the material world, which has been keeping us bound up here since time immemorial. So therefore, the impetus for action, just like when you join a temple, suddenly you're not free anymore. There's all these things you got to do, and it's a challenge. I like to tell the story of the first cold shower. You may have heard it before. This is March 27th in New York. It's still winter, basically, 3 days into spring. What's the big deal? So, and there wasn't much heat in the temple. They told me that the year before, there was no heat. And devotees were going down to Mangalarti, and this is New York. It's like, 10 degrees out there, 20. That means it's 20 degrees in the temple. And everyone's completely bundled up, even in Mangalarti, like that. We had that here for a while, actually. Now we have the heat Krishna's provided. But the thing is, okay, this is the challenge. First, getting up at that hour. And then there was a line, to the shower, because the temple was full of devotees. And I was thinking, this is it, If I can't take this cold shower, I got to leave. There's no question. So they get closer and closer and closer. I said, okay, I'm going to rely. I had like a ace in the hole, because I've been practicing a lot of hatha yoga, and a lot of breathing techniques. And one of them is this heating breath. I don't know if you've ever tried it. Actually, it works. And so when I got in that cold shower, there was no hot water, March 27th. And so, freezing cold water. And I just practiced that breathing, and of course I took a quick shower, And after 16 seconds, the shower was over. And I got out and I said, okay, I passed the first test, and now we can go to Mangalarti. But it's a series of challenges like that. And the basic point is that, by the time you move in the temple, there were so many people wanted to join the temple that there was a halfway house. In other words, you couldn't just join a temple. You had to live and see whether you could actually do it, And who else was in that halfway house? Devamrita Swami. Of course, he wasn't Devamrita Swami at that point. I forget his he was one of the ones. I forget who else was in there, but there were a bunch of devotees. And so the idea is that by the chanting and by the kirtans and the beautiful deities and all these different things, this has drawn you in, and you see, I want to stay here. I want to do this. I know I should, and so I'm going to break through the hesitancy to do this, do that, to that. But in essence, it's from one service to another. The duties are, okay, this is what you do, Bhakta Tom, right now, and you do here. You're 5 minutes late. What's going on? And like that. And there's no salary. I like to tell the story. I don't know. This I told recently. You probably may recognize that. We had so many devotees that every day we could do a maha cleanup. Everyone had a little portion of the temple to clean, and within 15 minutes it was clean, So my assignment for I don't know how many days I had it, was to mop the temple room, you know. Means get on your hands and knees with a bucket, you know. And so there I am, the deity curtains are open, and there's Radha Govinda, beautiful Radha Govinda, and Gauranatai, and Jagannath, I think, were there too. And and Yamuna's song is playing. We know the Govinda's song, but there's more on that tape. There's more on that cut. And one of them was, do I remember, Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya, and all arranged musically, you know, by George Harrison in the Apple Studios. It was all very beautiful. So that's going on. Just came out, and I'm bopping away, Radha Govinda. You know, I said, "Oh, this is," you know, I wasn't getting paid, but I was really getting paid in the most valuable thing. You know, so that's, and if you get enough realizations of that, you know, experiences, you realize that this is the most valuable, and I'm going to try to stick it out as much as possible. You know, so that's what Krishna is talking about here. With all your activities dedicated to me, sannyas-yatma means giving up completely one's sense of proprietorship, with full knowledge of the self. Without desire for profit, nirashya, no aspiration for profit, no sense of separate proprietorship, nirmama. And in this mentality, he's telling Arjuna, you should fight, which is the last thing you wanted to do materially. That's the thing. If you're really in this mood, then the only criterion for what you should do and not do is Krishna's order. What is Krishna? What will please Krishna? Now, how do you know? You got the book, and you got the guru, and you got the sadhus, you know, to give you orders. And you know, we had all these senior devotees like Pancharatna. I don't know if you know Panchan Gopi Jana Vallabha, and wonderful devotees, very effulgent. And remind me next time. I'm going to get this link. There was a show by this guy named David Susskind. He's probably, I don't know if anyone knows that show. This was on in the 60s and early 70s in the New York area. It was based. But he had the devotees on there. He had the Hare Krishnas on his show. This was like, and all these young devotees, you know, Bhardraj and Rukmini and Yogeshwar, Bhagavan, Rupanuga. Most of them are New York devotees. Bhagavan must have come in from somewhere else because he wasn't ever in New York. But they were also effulgent. I mean, I turned it on. I was at my parents' house. I said, I got to go watch some TV, try to get away from these Hare Krishnas. And I turned that on, and I kept running into them wherever I went. And there they were, and it was entrancing. And it's on YouTube. That show is on YouTube. I'll give them the link. If you watch it, you'll just be, wow, you know. And they got the chant right on this. I mean, this is a national show. Everyone watched it, you know. I saw it in black and white, but it was in color. And so, you know, you can see by just coming in contact, well, this process is really amazing. Look how blissful this person is, you know, and I want to try to do that. So then it becomes worthwhile, you know, just to try to meet this standard that he gives in text 30 here. Oh, it's getting late. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for attending. Hopefully we can resume on Monday with text 31. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.